Yo, what is up everybody? Welcome to the channel. It is T Ultra here, and in this video I'm going to be telling you how to go 12-0 in the month of July. And you can see right here we just went 12-0 to get this free Galaxy Opal Michael Beasley. I did post the gameplay video of my final 12-0 game. If you do want to check that out, I will link it in a card up above. But in this video, I'm going to be showing you the lineup I used and a bunch of other potential lineups that you can use and other people run. I'll let you know which one is my favorite. And then we're going to go into a game and I'll show you my settings, my playbook, my coach, all that good stuff. And yeah, before we get into it, make sure to subscribe. We are on our way to 200 subscribers, so I would greatly appreciate it if you could do that. And also drop a like if you could. That would also be very appreciated. And with that being said, let's get into the rest of the video. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you guys the lineup that I used to go 12-0 in the month of July and also in June. So here it is, and before you say, oh wow, there's a ruby, a gold, and emerald in there, how can this lineup go 12-0? This is not a lineup designed to beat God squads. But when you run this lineup, you're not going to go up against a God squad. That's the whole point. I found that running an 84 overall lineup was my best strategy, and I love this lineup because DiVincenzo, he's a ruby, but he plays like he's at least a diamond, more like a pink diamond. Iggy and Jonathan Isaac are just guys that have decent size, they can knock down corner threes, and they can play a little bit of defense. And Larry Bird and Chris Bosh are the main guys I would kind of run my offense through. There's not much to say about them. I just really love these cards. Chris Bosh, I love his release. He's got good range. He's just a very versatile player. And Larry Bird, he's a GOAT card. Not much to say about him. He's just an amazing card. I really liked using this lineup because it offers a lot of versatility, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to run into a team where they have at least one weak spot on their team that you can exploit with one of these players. Whether that be, they have a small forward at the forward position. They have Thonmaker Ruby who has no clamps. They're running bronzes out there that you can just completely leave them alone when you're on defense, or you can blow by them on offense. You can get a lot of post spins with Chris Bosh, Larry Bird. You can do a lot of drive and kicks if a bunch of their players don't have clamps. So this lineup I really enjoyed using. And I also have these 3 silvers to come off the bench just in case of emergency. These are 3 of my favorite silvers in the game. This is the lineup I used to go 12-0 in July, like I said. And I also went 12-0 in June. Now, in June, I was really struggling to go 12-0, and I actually went 12-0 on, I believe it was the 29th of June once I used this lineup. And I think I did it the first try once I started using this lineup. And then July came around, and so I was already on a 12-game win streak. And then July 1st, I hopped on Unlimited, used this lineup. I went 11-0, and then I lost my 12-0 game. It was very close until the end, and that was a real bummer. But I mean, I went on a 23-game win streak with this lineup, and I'm pretty good at 2K, but I'm not like, a comp player or anything like that. So like I said, this lineup worked as well for me as any lineup I have ever used. Honestly, it was the best lineup I've ever used to go 12-0. Like I said, I went on a 23-game win streak with this lineup, and then I tried going 12-0 a few more times after that, and I didn't get very far, but it only took me a few times to get back into position for another 12-0, and then I was able to pull out a clutch victory to get the 12-0 record. I was actually down by 15 at one point, and this lineup did come back. And guys, that team I was playing was insane. They had 2 bronzes, but it had like GOAT Kareem, it had Wiseman, and point guard LeBron. And this lineup was able to beat that. Even though it had 2 bronzes on the floor, obviously it had 3 really good opals against us, and we were somehow able to come back and win our 12-0 game with this lineup that you see right before you. So I love this lineup, 84 overall. This is the lineup that I love to run. So a very similar lineup to that you might see is something like this. I kind of touched on it. We came up against a Galaxy Opal LeBron, Galaxy Opal Wiseman, and then GOAT Larry Bird, and that lineup almost beat us. We literally almost lost that game. We ended up winning just narrowly for our 12-0 game. But a lineup like this, its advantage is you have 3 Galaxy Opals instead of 2. But the downside is you have a silver in the lineup and then a gold or something like that. Just 2 players that are not very good. But like I said, you do get a 3rd Galaxy Opal. I did try this after I lost that 12-0 game with this lineup right here. I switched over to this lineup to try it out, and honestly, it worked all right, but I didn't really love it because I found that I was getting exploited with Kevin Porter Jr. and Monty Morris a little bit too much, and I just prefer to have a little more depth, a little more solid lineup all around. And then here is one more type of lineup that you might want to use. I've seen a lot of people recommend this lineup. Basically, you have 3 silvers, or maybe you throw a bronze or 2 in there, and you have something like a diamond, a pink diamond, and maybe like an amethyst, something like that. You know, just some sort of variation of this lineup. The key point is whenever I hear about people trying to use this lineup, they try to keep it under 80 overall, and you run into bad teams for sure. But I found that I ran into so many sweats out there that were trying to do the same thing, where they would just, eventually I would run into some team that they were able to just overpower me with some sort of cheesy player that they had, like some sort of really tall player, maybe a GOAT card, something like that, where just the lack of depth on my team was not able to really hold up for 12 consecutive games. So I wouldn't recommend this lineup. I personally don't like it, but this is something that some people do use. And now we are going to move on to a little bit more of a conventional lineup. So there are 3 lineups that you can make out of the players that you see right here. So one thing a lot of people do is they run a 5-man rotation so that their overall is sort of more like an 88, 89, something like that if you have Galaxy Opals. And if you are going to do that, I recommend using a big point guard. Unfortunately, I don't have a guy like Magic, Giannis, Ben Simmons, someone like that, LeBron James. So I've been using Draymond Green when I try to do a 5-man, and maybe that's why I don't really love this strategy. It's because Draymond Green, he's solid, but he's nothing crazy. And you need a guy that you can run your offense through. So I have DeMar DeRozan in there to kind of handle the ball. He can shoot. He can do it all. Same with Larry Bird. And then if you are going to do a 5-man rotation, pretend the whole bench right now is all bronzes. If you are going to do this 5-man rotation, in my opinion, you need a big center and probably a bigger power forward. A lot of people like to run small ball lineups with something like maybe they have, you know, a Danny Manning sized player at the power forward. Well, if you don't have a bench and you run into some guy who's running 2 big players, maybe they're running GOAT, Kareem, and Wiseman, who's going to guard him in the post? Like, you could move Larry Bird down there and he can hold his own, but maybe you don't have the luxury of having a GOAT card on your lineup. You know what I'm saying? We don't all have this Larry Bird card. We all didn't grind for it. So you just want to be aware of not being able to be exploited with the size mismatch, because you do have to play 12 games in a row and win them all to go 12-0. I know it sounds obvious, but it's hard to win 12 games in a row, and you don't want to lose just because you're like undersized. Now, another type of lineup that you might see is a 6 to 8-man rotation. So we're going to act like I'm going to show you guys an 8-man rotation. So if I were to do an 8-man, I would do something like this. I would have Dwayne Wade coming off the bench as the point guard, shooting guard, and then I would have Danny Manning as a 3 and 4 and Chris Bosh as a 4 and 5. And the reason, and then just pretend these guys are all bronzes for now. And the reason I would do that is because it offers me a lot of versatility. If they have a big point guard, you know, Draymond might have to stay in the whole game, but then D-Wade could just come in for DeMar DeRozan, give him a little bit of a breather. Danny Manning, he can play the 3 or the 4 very well. So depending on the matchup that you're coming up against, that might be nice to have that versatility. Same with Bosh, he can play the 4 or the 5. If you're coming up against a bigger lineup, you might want to play him at the 4. But if the guy you're playing, you know, they don't have like a humongous power forward or anything, you could put him in at the center and he can hold his own down there. It really just comes down to matchups and trying to exploit that. So if you are going to do an 8-man rotation, I would recommend having something like that with a little bit of versatility. Make sure you have everything covered so that if you run into a big point guard, big, you know, center and power forward, big shooting guard even, you have someone to put in there. DeMar DeRozan, you know, and D-Wade, they're not the biggest shooting guards. So again, that's where having like a full roster might help. If you do a full God Squad type lineup like you see right here, if you just include all of these players in your lineup, there's no bronzes, they're all just the best of the best. And this isn't my updated God Squad. I'm not going to update it in this video, but you can add a number of any of these players in there, these Galaxy Opals. There's Beasley. Hey Beasley, welcome to the squad, bro. Glad to have you. But, you know, it just depends on your team. Maybe you don't have the greatest cards and your God Squad is a bunch of diamonds. But in my opinion, I don't necessarily recommend running a God Squad. At most, I would say a 10-man, which is another type of lineup you might see, where you have a point guard, backup point guard, shooting guard, backup shooting guard, you know, so on and so forth. You have a starting unit, a bench unit, and you just replace them 1 through 5. You know, you have starters 1 through 5. When they're tired, you put in the bench 1 through 5. And that's something you see a lot too. That increases your overall. So the more good players you have on your team, the more likely you are to play other God Squads. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know, because sometimes just because someone has a God Squad, that doesn't mean they're amazing at the game. But unless you spend a lot of money on the game, it's very likely that you will run up against a team with like a bunch of GOAT cards and the best cards in the game. And you're going to have to outplay that person. And if they're better than you, that's going to be tough. You're going to need a lot of luck on your side. So I don't necessarily recommend the GOAT squad tactic. I don't necessarily recommend the 10-man rotation. So if you're running like a 10-man, you know, it might look like this. This is your starting lineup. This is your backup 5, right? So then your overall is going to be a lot higher. You know, you might not need to have 2 big men. You might be able to just have Chris Bosh come in as a backup 4 and a backup 5, or Danny Manning come in as a backup 3 and 4, Paul Pierce 3 and 2, D Wade 1 and 2. You know, you don't necessarily need to have 10 players coming off the bench. And if you are having a GOAT squad that you're running with, like I said, it does offer you a lot of options, which is nice, don't get me wrong. For example, Isaac Bonga, he's a bigger point guard. So if the team that you're playing has a big point guard and you don't want to keep Draymond Green in the whole game, you could throw Isaac Bonga in there and he can hold his own against a big point guard as well. So it really just comes down to what your preference is. There are a lot of different ways to go about it. So just to recap quick, you can run a God squad, you can do a 5-man God squad, like a 6 to 8-man rotation, a 10-man rotation. Those are very, very common. And then you can kind of do like a 79 overall where you have 2 good players, the rest are kind of trash, but you're going to be playing people hopefully that are in that same situation. And then this is what I found to be the best, was an 84 overall lineup that was solid all around. There was really no weakness on the team. Or you could do an 84 overall where you have 3 opals and then 2 players that are not very good. Like I said, this is my favorite lineup right here I have ever used. It was by far the best lineup that I have used to go 12-0 this 2K20 season, year, whatever you call it. But this is the playbook that I use. And to be honest, when we get into the game, I'm going to show you a way that you don't have to use the Bucks playbook, because people use the Bucks playbook to 5 out, and it is good for that, but you can also 5 out even if you don't have the Bucks playbook. Another good playbook is the Miami Heat 2013 playbook. Here it is right here. This has a lot of good 3-point plays, but to be honest, guys, at this stage, most people are aware that this playbook exists, and most people can stop the 3-point plays in here. So if you do want to use it just to occasionally throw in a 3-point play, you can use it. And if you combine it with what I'm going to show you once we get into the game, you don't need the Bucks playbook. So it's not necessarily bad to use the Heat playbook, and because you can also 5 out without using the Bucks playbook if you're into that kind of thing. And I will show you that once we get into the game. But don't just depend on using the Heat playbook, the 13 Heat playbook, to run these 3-point plays, because people will catch on and you'll just throw a lot of like steals, baited passes, all that stuff. So those are kind of the 2 playbooks that I see most often used. And then this is what I do right here. This is my coach. There's Nick Nurse. If you want more defense, you can use Popovich. You can use Steve Kerr for also the same effect as Nick Nurse. There really are a bunch of coaches that you can use. I don't have Terry Stotts, but he is also another good coach you can use. He's an Amethyst coach, and I can't remember if he's perimeter or balance, but either way, I know a lot of people do use him. And we are going to hop into a game of MyTeam Unlimited with the lineup that I used to go 12-0 in the month of June and July. And like I said, this is the lineup that I won 23 straight games with at one point. I went 12-0 with it, and then I went 11-1, and then I was able to go 12-0 with it a few days later. Here we go. Okay, so even though there are a bunch of diamonds and pink diamonds, I am not worried about this team at all, because those diamonds and pink diamonds are not that good. And I have Bird and Bosch on my team, and they can really just destroy this team. And then Isaac and Iggy can hold it down, and DiVincenzo can hit threes if he needs to, get to the basket. So the videos that I posted already with this lineup, they were both where I came up against literally the hardest teams that I had ever played with those lineups. You know, I ran into 3 very, very good Galaxy Opals in both of those videos. And this is the type of team that you might run into more often. In addition to this type of team, I also ran into several teams where it was like a bunch of like sapphires, rubies, emeralds, even gold, stuff like that. People that seem to have just started the game. And those were the types of games where I just got an easy rage quit in like 5 minutes. So we did win the tip-off, and the first thing I do is I go to defensive settings, I go to on-ball pressure smother, off-ball tight. You can do on-ball screen, go over. A lot of people do that to try to stop 3 balls. I usually don't worry about it unless it becomes a problem, but that is one thing you can do. One thing I'll do sometimes is I'll go to post and behind, just so I'm in better position to get rebounds, but that's not always necessary. I very rarely even worry about that setting. And then some people turn drive help, they turn the drive help rules to no help. I actually leave it on because I found that even though it is annoying to have people leave their guys unattended just for no reason, leave them wide open, I found it was more annoying when the computer would just simply let a guy go right by him because I have this set to no help. Like the guy you're defending gets by you, he's 5 outing, and then your teammate can literally step 1 foot to the left and get in his way, but instead he just stays where he is, you know, because it's set to no help. So I like to leave it just the way it is, just automatic. If it becomes a problem, you can set it to no help. It really is just a matter of preference. They both do have their downsides and their upsides. So you just kind of got to get a feel for it and what works best for you. And then I go through each individual matchup, like Fisher, he can shoot. If I do come up against a lineup where they're running like a bronze or a silver that can't shoot, I will play off of them. I'll even go to Gap or leave him if it's like a Merson or something like that, or a guy who's like an F, 3-point rating, or even like a C 3-point rating. Like I'm fine with him shooting that. But in this lineup, he does have all guys that can shoot the ball. And then if you don't have the Bucks playbook and you want to do a 5-out, you just go to the freelances and you click Hawks 2018, and then I will show you how to activate that freelance once we get into the game. If you are doing the Bucks playbook, you just need to go to play selection, pick a play, and then go down to this FIS 64 5-out down. And then after you do all that, make sure to go to coach settings and turn the adaptive coaching engine to off to make sure that nothing gets changed up or anything. So now we have the Hawks freelance set. We're going to click right on the D-pad, go to freelance sets, and I'm going to select the Hawks. And then from there, I'm going to hit the left bumper on Xbox, L1 on PlayStation, and I'm going to do pass and screen away. And you can see how I have a full 5-out right there. And I spent that whole possession kind of talking to you guys, so apologies for that. The rest of the possessions will look prettier than that. I kind of just ran out of time on the shot clock. All right, so we are 5-outing again, and we have a straight run to the basket right there. And if guys do start to help out and help out on that drive, you will be able to kick it out to them, hopefully, and any of these guys can knock down a 3. Obviously, Iggy and Isaac are not the best at 3-point shooting, but if they are in the corner, they can hold their own. And we're just going to be patient here. We're going to bring up the ball. I do a lot of behind the backs. I like to crash towards the bucket and then just kick it out to DiVincenzo for the wide open 2. He's money, guys. He's a Ruby, but he's unbelievable. He helped. I would not be able to go 12-0 if he was not in my lineup. Just like that, we were solid on defense. So another thing you guys want to do is you want to play a little on ball and off ball. You want to be in passing lanes, and you want to stay in front of the guy, like between your guy and the basket. But you also want to make sure that you're getting in passing lanes, as we see Larry Bird for the wide open 3. Just try to predict what they're going to do. Try to guard multiple players at once off ball when you can. It's kind of hard to explain. You just kind of have to get a feel for it. But don't be afraid to help off and just, keep rotating your guys around, because if you help with someone, chances are the person you're playing is going to think, oh, I have a wide open pass. But little do they know, you take control of another guy to help out and, help cover that guy who was just left wide open. That was a good double team right there by my opponent, and he throws it alley-oop to nobody. Another thing I like to do is to just do some pick and pops, pick and fades. I'll give it back to Bosch. He's open. Like, that's just the most classic play in the book. That was a bad release, but he ended up getting it to go. And, he's rushing now. Like, you can tell he is a little rattled. And you can see I'm playing off with Isaac, but I go back to DiVincenzo. Just kind of put guys in the positions that they need to be. We did help with Bosch a little bit, but he got that animation on us right there. And when I bring up the court, I immediately press pass and screen away, and then I'll do behind the backs. Like, that really helps get by people. And once they start overplaying the drive, you can do that little snatch back, and you'll have a wide open 3. And, I mean, DiVincenzo can knock it down every time. It wasn't a green, but he's good enough where he can still make it. So, again, we're going to try to, be in position. We're there with Isaac. And look at that. Missed shot. Can't get the board. But he did get a good look right there. Luckily, we lucked out, and I'm running with DiVincenzo. I can take this 3, or I can just wait. And there we are. We're open. And we're just going to pop that. Oh, that was terrible. That was completely my bad. He kind of got in a weird animation right there that I did not expect. I wanted a quick stop. He ended up doing like a snatch back. So I was kind of messing up that release a little bit, but we're not worried. And guys, look at Chris Bosch's behind the back. If you end up using Bosch, look at this. Look at how much room he gets, bruh. You want to also be able to hop step. And we see Iggy in the corner. He can knock that down. And he misses it there, but trust me, he can knock down the corner 3 when he needs to. Obviously, he's not like the best shooter in the game. He's a gold card, but he is very, very good for a gold card. He also does have clamps. DiVincenzo, come on, bro. Also, while he's shooting, I do like to set it to crash the glass and play physical when I am on defense. And then on offense, I like to have it set to limit transition. And sometimes I like to set it to push the pace because sometimes they just are sluggish. I don't know if it really helps anything, but again, I'm going to go to pass and screen away, and look at the space we get. Look at that. And we have room to get by my defender. You're not going to be able to get by your defender every single time, because this is a more well-balanced team. If you are playing a guy who has Galaxy Opals, obviously you're not just going to be able to blow by like GOAT MJ every time, but these are the type of games that you will run into where, the lineup you're playing just is not that good. And these are all, you know, he has a Galaxy Opal on the court. He has 2 Galaxy Opals on the floor, actually, with that dynamic duo, some diamonds and pink diamonds, and I'm not worried about it at all with this lineup. It is that good. And you see how we're playing lanes? We're playing lanes. Get out there, get out there. No way, no way, no way. Good defense. We get the board, and I love to push the tempo. You don't want to push it too much to the point where they're chucking it out of bounds, but I do like to kind of hurry things up a little bit when I can, as long as it's being smart and you're not getting baited. And we finished the first quarter with a 7-point lead, and I'm not going to lie, I believe I'd be winning by a lot more if I wasn't focused so much on like talking and explaining things. It is kind of hard to do both at the same time, but even with that being said, we still have a very, very good lead here. Also, if you want, you can set it to no threes. That is kind of the best sort of like defensive setting, in my opinion. Just kind of has the defensive AI sort of stop the other team from getting wide open threes and stuff a little bit. Obviously, the AI is still not that smart, but it helps at least a little bit, I would like to think. And sometimes, like I said, I will take the ball up with Bosch because I love his behind the back. Just look at that. And if he overplays it, I can do that step back, and we get by him right there. Oh, yeah, look at that. Put it up, put it up. Easy, easy bucket. And, like, this team is decent, just in terms of the players it has on the team. But, like, there are other times when you will run into lineups, like I said, where they have, like, all current series players with, like, no clamps. None of them have range. That's the best thing. All right, so we get stopped right there. And, again, we're just going to try a little pick and fade right here. And there we go. You have it open. And for some reason, Bosch did roll to the basket. And I thought he was going to get that to go, but he didn't quite right there. And we're there on defense. Like, instead of jumping, I like to just hold the right stick up and put a hand up. Sometimes it doesn't work that well. But there it did, and we get the nice alley-oop to Chris Bosch. And these are the types of games that you love. If you don't run into a team that's like, you know, brand new to the game, running those current series cards, like I said, or just those, you know, those free, like Pink Diamond Kobe, free Zion, free Dame, those types of cards. This is the type of lineup you kind of like to run into because, I mean, he has a lot of diamonds, pink diamonds, even opals, but they're not, like, good. You know what I mean? So, again, we're just going to be patient. Another move you can do is just this little move right here. Just get a little bit of space, and the wide open three is there. And I think he might be quitting, and there he is. And that's how you do it. So that was a little bit of gameplay right there, and we got a nice dub. And again, going 12-0 is not an easy thing to do. Even very, very good players will lose 1 in 12 games. Like, winning 12 games in a row is very, very hard. So I could give you all the lineups, all the settings, all the gameplay, all the tips in the world, but at the end of the day, you really do need a little bit of luck on your side and a lot of skill, even for like very good players. Unless you're like a comp level player, it's going to be hard. Winning 12, like, the thing that about going 12-0 is if you lose one game, you have to restart the whole thing. That's what makes it so difficult, right? I mean, it is obvious, but you might not even think about it that way. So even if you're very good, it's going to take you like probably a lot of tries to go 12-0 unless you're like super good or super lucky. So a big thing is just be patient, and you also want to practice. Like, if you're not that good at the game, I'm going to be honest, it's going to be hard for you to go 12-0. You need to have some sort of skill. Like, just, you know, implementing certain settings and all that is not going to automatically get you 12 wins. Another key point, guys, is to be very familiar with your team. I have used this lineup a lot, and I know how to use these players very, very well. I know their animations, I know their dribble moves, I know their releases, and that helps a lot. Another big thing that I didn't really get to touch on in that video is when you are on defense. I mentioned it a little bit, but I didn't get to show it that much. He wasn't throwing very many baited passes, but you want to try to bait your opponent when they are on offense and you're on defense. Being able to rotate on defense, you want to move your guy who is guarding the ball. You want to make sure that he's in position to guard the ball handler, but you also want to make sure that the guys who are off ball are in position to help, that they're in passing lanes, that they're not going to get blown by, backdoor, all of that stuff you have to keep in consideration, guys. Like, it just takes practice. Practice the game. Practice dribbling, practice shooting, practice playing defense, playing lanes. Players, man, you want to get familiar with your players, and you want to have the right players. You want to have versatility, especially if you're doing a 5-man. If you're doing a GOAT squad where you have like all Galaxy Opals or something like that, you know, all the best players in the game, then, you know, obviously you don't need as much versatility because they can all do everything, right? And you have a whole bench to throw in whoever you want. But if you do this lineup, you know, this is a good versatile lineup. You have to be patient, because you're not going to go 12-0 right away unless you're super, super good at the game. So keep at it. So that is going to do it for the video, guys. I hope that was at least somewhat helpful. Feel free to comment down below if you have any questions about something maybe I forgot to include in the video, or if you have any questions just about any sort of like going 12-0, MyTeam Unlimited type of stuff. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed it or thought it was helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.